Hello, boys and girls of the internet. I am your friend, Jackie Wolf, and today we're going to be, well, doing an advertisement for my website, jackiewolf.tv. And don't you worry, it's not just a you have to pay for a website. It is an aggregate that is ever growing, hosted by Minds.com, that aggregates my YouTube videos, my Twitter thoughts, and everything in between. It is an ever-growing and expanding empire, and I'm not exactly sure that we will continue using Mind, although we may still use it as the video aggregate source. But please, join Mind at the very least. Catch me there. But anyways, let's go into the actual meat and potatoes of my content. Before I start today's videos, get rid of the menu over here because I'm an idiot. You can't see it on the last screen. Anyways, before we get into the news, I'm just going to say thank you guys for actually watching. It means a lot to me, and I'm absolutely sorry about yesterday's video not having audio. I'm currently rearranging a lot of things again, trying to set things up to where they're a little bit more friendly in both the virtual space and in real life. My health issues are getting a little bit worse, so there's that. And I've been working a lot in the background trying to tweak things so that, well, you guys have a little bit better time experiencing what I'm doing. That being said, let's get into the news, starting with Mr. Joe Biden. Hopefully this time it records.
I saying the recession's even more likely than ever.
Not the majority of them aren't saying that. Come on, don't make things up, okay? Now you sound like a Republican politician. I'm joking. That was a joke. But all kidding aside, no, I don't think it is. I was talking to Larry Summers this morning, and there's nothing inevitable about a recession. Here's what I think we're going to be able to do. I think we're going to be able to get a change in Medicare and a reduction in the cost of insulin. Insulin, if you know anybody who has type 2 diabetes or has a child who has it, they need less shots during the week.
Alright, when it comes down to it, that's the man himself, President Joe Biden, talking completely out his ass. You see, all the flags for a recession are already there. In fact, I would argue that we are probably already in a recession. We're just not fully aware of it as of yet. The problem with that is, well, anybody can see it. We're releasing fuel from the Strategic Fuel Reserve in order to make payments, or in order to lower gas, because the policies by this president. And I'm not just saying that it is this president's fault, but there is a lot that goes into this. And this is not a conversation for, an ad hoc news show that I threw together for a daily grind of content. But, it is ever evolving because, well, I do like shiny things. I need a business suit. I might have to do that next.
Mr. President, are you considering a pause on the federal gas tax, Mr. President? We know that you're considering it, and Secretary Gunning spoke about it yesterday.
That's what I'm considering.
How soon can we expect a decision?
Well, I hope I have a decision based on that I'm looking for by the end of the week.
Will you be sending?
Yeah, it was a Bloomberg Quicktake that I stole from the internet. Come at me, bro. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to further opine on this particular video, and all credit to Bloomberg's for those two catches. Don't remember. I will try to pull up the tweets and add them to the thing. But when it comes down to it, the Joe Biden administration pausing a gas tax is going to be a little bit more than a drop in a bucket towards the increasing prices of gasoline. I've heard estimates of it being up to $10 to $15 for a gallon of diesel by Christmas. Now, a lot of you are going, wow, that's going to be good for the environment. Not really. Because imagine not being able to get your avocado toast. Imagine not being able to get bananas. Because a lot of things that you take for granted are traveled by diesel. In fact, the skyrocketing in diesel price will actually cause a skyrocketing in everything else. That being said, we're going to move into the next news story. And I've been having problems with my recording software today, so I'm not going to bore you with everything. There are pictures that went with this that I don't have on hand right now. I hate ads. We did some testing off and we found out that it was ads that's causing this. I just don't feel like capturing a browser source right now. But in this story, Uvalde police respond an abject failure. Texas Public Safety Chief says, I hit the wrong button. Look, one of the things that need to be added to this is a refresh button to interact. I can't go full screen with it to make it easier on my eyes to read, because if I do that, I lose control of the web page. In fact, if I go too big, I lose control of the web page, which is annoying, but it is what it is, and it is how I'm trying to make things look more professional, despite the fact that I'm learning as I go, if that makes any sense. Anyways, filler enough for... Okay. You were cooperating earlier. What the hell, dude? Just going to get rid of that. Alright. Hopefully this time it loaded correctly. Yeah. Uvalde police respond to our response an abject failure. Basically, it was the custom CMS code that I had inputted, causing issues. Austin, Texas, law enforcement authorities had enough officers on the scene of Uvalde school massacre to have stopped the gunman 3 minutes after he entered the building. They never checked a classroom door to see if it was locked. The Texas Public Safety Chief testified Tuesday, pronouncing the police response an abject failure. And I'm going to be honest with you, when police started showing up with rifles, I've actually seen a lot of this. When you see police standing outside the room with rifles 3 minutes in, 20 minutes in with a ballistic shield, there is absolutely an issue. And what I think it comes down to is the police aren't the kind of police that care about the community. They're the kind of police that don't care about anything. And it's one of those sad things that's been happening a lot lately. A lot of you people don't understand when I say that I don't think you can always rely on the police. And then I get told, well, there's a protect and serve. And I go, well, they're kind of just humans anyway. And a lot of Black Lives Matter rioting and defunding has gotten rid of the good police from most police departments. So when it comes down to it, we're actually playing a dangerous game. And it's an ever getting dangerous thing. The decision to police to hold back against much of the law enforcement has been learned in the past 2 decades. Since a lot of how you do the school thing is actually started in Columbine. There's been a lot of evolution in how you do that. You don't wait for a SWAT team. You have one officer, that's enough, he said. You said officers did not wait for shields to enter the classroom. The first shield arrived less than 20 minutes after the shooter arrived, according to McCraw. McCraw testified that a state Senate hearing on the police handling of the tragedy, delays, and law enforcement response became the focus of federal, state, and local investigations. Absolutely, because this is an appalling tragedy, and I believe it is a failure of the police. It is not a failure of the community. It is not a failure of gun control. It is a failure of the police. And I believe that it says obviously not enough training in this situation, plain and simple, because terrible decisions were made by on-site commander McCraw said of Pete Armando, who the Uvalde School District Police Chief. I don't think that was very much just it. I think that there's a lot of breakdown, and I believe that there are certain times that you should violate direct orders. 8 minutes after the shooter arrived in the building, an officer reported that the police had a hooligan crowbar that they could use to break down the classroom door, McCraw said. That means that they had the means to enter even a locked building after 8 minutes. That means that we could have saved potentially a lot of children's lives. And that actually means that there's a lot of probability that the Uvalde people were not served the justice that they deserved, but rather the loss of life was preventable by the police officers. And it certainly was preventable by a lot of Uvalde residents who offered to break into the school and save the children themselves, and were subsequently arrested for violating a police investigation. At the point it is a mass shooting, it is no longer an investigation. At the point of a mass shooting, your job is to save as many lives as possible. The public safety chief outlined a commission of missed opportunities, communications breakdowns, and other mistakes. The police chief did not have a radio with him. You should always have a radio with you at any crime scene. The police and sheriff's radio did not work within the school. Only the radios of Border Patrol agents on the scene worked inside the school, and even they did not work perfectly, which is probably because that school may have been built in a very different time, and budget cuts leads to cheaper radios. We dealt with this at work because I work in a facility that's bigger than the range of most civilian radios. So if you stand where I am assigned to and somebody calls me from the office, a lot of times I don't get it. Some diagrams of the school that the police were using to coordinate their response were wrong. This police initially said the gunman entered the school through an exterior door that had been propped open by a teacher, but McGraw said that that teacher had closed the door and it could only be locked from outside. Oh, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. There are no way for her to know that the door is locked. He said he walked straight through. The questions about law enforcement response began days after the massacre, McCall said. Said 3 days after the shooting that Armando made the wrong decision when he chose not to storm the classroom for more than 70 minutes. And even as trapped fourth graders inside 2 classrooms, desperately calling 911 for help, and anguished parents outside the school begged officers to go inside, to the point that a lot of anguished parents were trying to go inside themselves to save their own children. This is again a breakdown of police. Armando later said he didn't consider himself the person in charge and assumed that everyone else had taken control of the law enforcement response. Armando has declined to repeated requests for comments to the Associated Press. The issue I take with this, dude, is that you're the sheriff. Even if you're not directly in charge, you are in charge of your men. Your deputies are responsible in this situation. You are in charge. As for the amount of time that elapsed before officers entered the classroom, McGraw said, to an active and shooting environment, that's intolerable. Take in mind that not long ago they had just had a practice drill at this very same school. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't just all call out COVID, but, this sets our profession back a decade. That's what it did, he said the police response in Uvalde. police haven't found anything that would be a red flag to the shooter's school disciplinary files, but learned through interviews that he engaged in animal cruelty. He walked around with a bag of dead cats, McCraw said. In the days and weeks after the shooting, authorities gave conflicting and incorrect amounts of what happened, sometimes withdrawing statements hours after making them. McCraw said, assured Lawson, everything I've testified today has been corroborated. McCraw said that if he could just make one recommendation, it would be for training. He also said that a go bag should be put in every state patrol car in Texas, including a shield and a door breaching tools. I want every trooper to know how to breach and how have the tools to do it, he said. Which I'm honestly going to tell you, I am a absolutist. I believe that everybody should have the right to whatever weapon they can afford. That being said, if you're walking around with a fully automatic weapon, the police are allowed to have a fully automatic weapon. The police are allowed to have breaching charges. Now, I honestly do not believe that gives police justification just to kill people, but in this case, a breaching tool, a cop that would have been brave and actually kick in a door and take out the gunman would have been a good thing. But I digress. That's just how things are right now. Confusing, crazy, and a bunch of lies. And I really hate talking about tragedy all the time. It really saddens me a lot. But it is what happens, and oftentimes it's not a pleasant thing. So we're going to move into even more annoyances with the United States military and West Point. Now, a lot of you know that I am actually a fan of a lot of military history. I study a lot of like history stuff, and I read a lot of political mumbo jumbo and theories that most people don't want to read. That being said, that when there's a crossover of mumbo jumbo and our military, it perks my ears up a little bit because, well, I have to investigate. West Point cadets schooled on whiteness and queer theory under newly revealed CRT regime. The West Point cadets have been taught whiteness connotates race privilege and structural advantage as part of instructions based on critical race theory, according to newly revealed documents and course materials from the military academy. I don't agree with this at all. I really don't. In fact, I believe this is actually just trying to rip this country apart based on race. The people that push for this stuff are no better than the National Socialists of Germany in the 1930s, in my mind. And quite honestly, when it comes to whiteness, what is whiteness? What is whiteness? What is the definition of whiteness? Is it my skin color? My skin color is white. But if you was to look at my genealogy and my family history, we spent time as slaves. In fact, slave comes from Slav, and they're whiter than me. So, what is whiteness? What is the structural privilege that you're talking about? I'm from the second most impoverished part of the United States. I had to work my way 2 jobs through college. I'm not fully socially acceptable for being effeminate, for being who I am, and I'm fine with that. Because at the end of the day, it's just mumbo jumbo. Among the trove of documents, which were handed over to Justice Watch after a public records lawsuit, are presentation slides include our instruction cadets that are, in order to understand racial inequality and slavery, it is first necessary to address whiteness. Again, what is whiteness? Whiteness, as the slide reads, is the standpoint or place from which white people look at themselves and the rest of society, and refers to a set of cultural practices that are usually unmarked and unnamed. Oh, so like going to work on time, being a active member of society, speaking your opinion against the dreaded norms, I'm guessing. Is that it? Is that what whiteness is? Because I really don't understand this. I don't look at my mirror and go, oh, well, this is how I look at myself and the rest of society. I generally look at the mirror and go, God, I hate the person in the mirror. But I have reasons for that. I really do. I don't really give a crap about people's skin color, honestly. And generally, I talk about society a lot because, well, that's what I do. I talk about gaming culture and news. That's Jackie Wolf's life. Another slide contains a graphic that reads, Modern day slavery in the United States. Instructs students on the disparities between black and white people. The presentation points out that black people are less likely to have a college education, receive recommended medical screening tests, receive bank approval for a housing and mortgage, own their own homes, or receive a job promotion. Well, replace black person with Appalachian and you have the same fucking thing. And we're not black. Like a lot of Appalachians are Mexican and white. Well, excuse me, Latino. And white. And that's one of the things that I really hate about these things. Oh, black people don't have the same opportunities. And so a lot of times it's due to the people that were saying that gave a bunch of freaking handouts. You see, the human body and mind is a very competitive thing. It is. Unfortunately, we do need cooperation and we need competition. We need both in order to work. But we keep handing and handing to people without making it a true meritocracy, which further and further degrades their role in society. Welcome to the problem that I have been espousing for a very long time. And yes, I know, I'm one to talk being from Southern Appalachia, where most people make under $20,000 a year. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said that I am from a very impoverished area, where people don't tend to actually own their homes, a lot of times have a hard time keeping or finding a job. And furthermore, I don't really think that teaching military cadets any of this will help them out in the battlefield. God, could you imagine? This army officer walks up to, let's say, Chinese, and goes, "Your country's run by whiteness because it's inequality. There's no equality." And that's one of the things. Like, we are one of the most equal and just countries on earth, just by the nature of the fact that we have a Bill of Rights. Did it take us a long time to understand that? Did it take us a long time to advance those rights to the people that they should have been advanced to in the first place? Absolutely. Is it an ever-growing process? Yes. But at the same point, I often point out, like with trans rights activists, what rights do trans people not have? What rights do women not have? We've extended every right available to everybody, including the freedom of speech. And now when they start screaming, well, we need rights, they're actually taking away your rights. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people don't care about anything but power and think that if they side with those that are in power. And yes, I am necessarily speaking about the people that actually believe in the CRT thing. To me, it's just a bunch of racist nonsense written by a bunch of racist people. Again, I've actually read it. It's garbage. I would rather go back to reading Trotsky. Oh wait, I am reading Trotsky. I'd rather go back to reading freaking Marx. And God, that was a headache. Or somebody as long-winded as Ayn Rand. Because I do actually keep my political theories balanced. Because that's how you grow. But when it comes to military cadets, I don't think this is something that they should be learning. Just saying. Then again, what do I know? I'm just a dumb nickajack. Just an idiot from Alabama, guys. No idea what's going on. Ever. At all. 90% of the time. So, we're gonna go furthermore, as my transition fucks up. And I don't know why that was off. Actually, I do. We're going to go to PBS. PBS NewsHour. What to watch in the runoff for the Alabama Senate runoff, DC mayoral race, and in Georgia. Sweet Georgia. As fucking ads. The U.S. Senate primary, Montgomery, Alabama, Republican candidates in Alabama's U.S. Senate primary runoff each other boast at one point they had Donald Trump's endorsement in the race. Yeah, that is actually a thing. Both of our Republicans have had Donald Trump's endorsement. And I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I don't know which one I am least a fan of. Because if I said that would be endorsing a candidate, and to be fair and impartial, I can't actually do that. However, I will say that I believe that you should absolutely do research on any candidates that you're voting for, and I believe that you should participate in your party's primaries. This is my first year being a Republican. Historically, I started off as a registered Democrat in this state. I moved to an independent. I am a Republican because, well, let's just say I'm working towards a candidacy thing of my own as a Republican libertarian. And that is basically the only way that I could get on a ticket in this state, and I still have to wait 4 more years before I can because of how the state's laws work. But traditionally, I have a tendency of voting for the more libertarian of any choice, just because of my values being that I believe that policies start at home and really hate authority. I hate corporations and not a big fan of government. But before I went into that tangent, Alabama is currently having a major GOP runoff for the nomination to replace Senator Richard Selby, who announced he was retiring in February 2021 after serving 6 terms, which, if you knew Alabama politics, isn't very uncommon. I mean, Kay Ivey's been in politics her entire life. Although she should be gone fairly soon. Hopefully we get a more libertarian candidate. Somebody that's willing to start stripping away from some of the... I'm just going to say this. Alabama is one of the most corrupt governments in the 50 states, but we're also the most inept government in the 50 states. That is why our education is extremely poor and a lot of things going on in the state. Plus the fact that you have multiple distinct cultures that make absolutely no sense. So, yeah. Basically, it goes on that Trump endorsed Brooks, but then Brooks did a lot of things that really makes him look terrible, including saying get away from the 2020 election defeat and stuff like that, and trying to be the moderate choice of Alabamians when we're already a fairly moderate state. Brett Shelby's former chief of staff and former leader of State Business Group won the most votes in last month's primary, capturing nearly 45% of the ballots compared to Brooks' 29. Brooks needed to earn more than 50% of the vote to outright avoid a runoff. A lot of people don't know this. In the state of Alabama, unless it's like our presidential election is actually 10%. We're not a very deep red state, even though a lot of news reporters say we are, because that swings generally between 9 and 11%. Yeah, that's actually a thing. And for many years of my life, we actually had a very blue legislator in this state, but a very red representation in Congress. So most of my life, we were a very interesting state, a very volatile state, like very volatile, because we'd have times where parts of the state would just stop listening to the government in Montgomery. We had times where, well, that still happens. What am I kidding? It still happens a lot. Mask mandates, guys. Mask mandate. We think Alabamians should wear masks in public. I hate to tell you that. That's a felony in Alabama. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Alabama has times where we're just like, this county doesn't agree with what you're saying, so we're just going to go do our own thing now. And because the rest of Alabama is autistic, it just goes, okay. We do need a lot of reforms, though. We need a lot of fixing and stuff like that. But back to this, another top candidate, Mike Durant, best known for the helicopter pilot who held captive in Somalia during the 1993 battle chronicled in the book and film Black Hawk Down, finished in third place, failing to advance to the runoff. Again, generally Alabamians pick either extremely bad candidates or extremely bad candidates. We're not historically known for our best choice in election leaders. The former president, who has a mixed... Yeah, I don't really care. Everybody that picks and endorses people has a mixed record. Now we're getting to Georgia, where Georgia actually has a few things going on. State Representative Benigni, packed by Democratic governor nominee Stacey Abrams, is trying to defeat former state rep D. Dawkins Higler in Secretary of State's race. The winner will face the Republican Secretary of State, Brad Roxburgh, in the fall. Well, yeah, I can understand this too, because there is still a lot of questions about Georgia's elections. That does not mean I'm saying fraud. Google, YouTube, I'm not saying there's fraud. I'm just saying that a lot of people in Georgia actually still have a lot of questions about what happened. In Congress, our congressional arenas, Vermin Jones, a Trump-backed candidate and former Democrat, is competing against trucking company owner Mike Collins for Republican nomination of the 10th Industrial District seat of Atlanta. Collins was endorsed by Republican Brent Kemp, who also won a primary over Trump-backed challenger. Okay. The issue here, I'm not a big fan of just going, hey, this is the Trump-backed candidate. And I'm not going to know much about Georgia elections. If you live in Georgia and you watch my content, absolutely. If these are your representatives, make sure you read their platforms. Make sure you hold their feet to the fire. I don't know much about them. I haven't really paid much attention to Georgia politics, partly because I hate Georgia. I don't like traffic cams, man. Also, I hate the fact that I always love this. The lottery places like a foot within inside Georgia state lines, and there's a fireworks stand a foot within Alabama state lines, because we know people break those laws. It's one of those funny things. In the 6th District, in Atlanta's northern suburbs, emergency room physician Rich McCormick is trying to hold off Trump-backed lawyer Jake Evans. That race is revolved around accusations by each candidate that the other is insufficiently conservative. Guys, you're not conservative enough. Neither of you are. You're both rhinos. Actually, funnily enough, I'm not even really conservative, because, well, there is some necessary authority needs for a conservative to be in power. And I will fight back against that as much as I fight back against wokeness. It doesn't matter to me. They're both wrong. Oh, it's funny. It's really funny. Republican winners in the 6th and 10th are heavy favorites in the November election over their Democratic opponents. Oh, well, yeah, that's actually true. And I can tell you, I understand why. If you was to look at the crime rate in Atlanta, if you was to look at the Georgia economy, if you was to look at many things that are going on in Georgia, not to mention the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene was in the news for something, and she's one of the actually beloved people in Georgia, apparently. I was not aware of that. She is actually beloved. And I don't get a problem with her, so it's funny. The Republican winners in yeah, I read that. Republicans have high hopes of knocking off 30-year Democratic Rep. Stanford Bishop in Southwest Georgia's 2nd District. The GOP is choosing between former Army officer Jeremy Hunt and real estate developer Chris West. Again, please do research on your local candidates, because I don't like bitching when they don't hold our values. Yeah, you gotta hold their feet to the fire. They work for you. You don't work for them. You're the ones that puts them in office. You're the ones that have ultimate say if they stay in office. In Virginia, voters will be picking Republican nominees to take on Democratic U.S. House and Commons, two of the most highly competitive districts in the country. And I can tell you, having talked to a few Virginians, part of this is the debate on gun control, which is weird because that's also a thing in Pennsylvania right now. In fact, a lot of states are having a debate on gun control. It's almost like there's a necessary dividing of the American populace right now. The coastal 2nd District, which includes the state's most populous city, Virginia Beach, 4 military veterans are competing for the GOP nomination, with a big funding lead and backing of the Confederal Leadership Fund, a super PAC dedicated to electing House Republicans. State Senator Jen Kiggins is widely seen as the frontrunner. The winner will face Democratic Elaine Laura, a retired naval commander and member of the Jan 6 committee in the general election. And that's another contention point. A lot of people, I know a lot of people seen that poll that people were misquoting, where they said, "Oh, well, 60% of people agree with this." No, 60% of people believe that there should be a fair and just look into January 6th, with 30 to 33% of those people not actually following anything about January 6th. The people that think that Trump should be arrested was something like 20% at most. And it's one of those things, like it ends up boiling down to it's a 50-50, and the methodology of that poll is a little weird. I don't actually have it pulled up, and I don't feel like pulling it up. I might talk about it at a later date. Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser is trying to fend off challenges from a pair of council members as district contends with raging crimes and homeless concerns. Yes, there's a lot of homeless in Washington, D.C. There is a lot of problems in Washington, D.C. And basically, the two are Robert White and Trayvon White, who are not related, just to point that out there, are challenging Muriel Bowser over the fact that there is a massive homeless issue. There's a massive spike in crime in D.C., and this is stemming way back to the BLM protests. This is stemming way back to then. But there is a lot of things going on in DC that aren't good. And one of the big problems with DC is whoever wins the Democratic nomination will pretty much be mayor of DC. It does go on to say that Muriel Bowser is a big proponent of making DC a state. I completely disagree with that. Actually, if you were to go back to our founders, DC should not even have a city council. It should be ran by the president and his council. That being said, DC is also not supposed to be a livable city. It was supposed to be the capital territory, because they didn't want to give any state some necessary over any other. But it's all good, I guess. Trayvon openly invokes the spirit of late DC mayor. Wait, hold on. Robert Wright, who is one of the candidates, has a successful insurgent campaigns, having unseated a entrenched incumbent for an at-large council seat in 2016. Trayvon White openly invokes the spirit of DC Mayor Morton Berry, who remains a controversial but loved figure among many Washington people. White was criticized in 2018 for claiming the Rothschilds, a Jewish banking dynasty and frequent subject of anti-Semitic conspiracy, were controlling Washington's weather conditions. He later said he didn't realize that his comment would be construed as anti-Semitic. I personally am not a big fan of Rothschilds or any of the banking establishment families. There are 6. I don't like any of them. Doesn't mean I hate Jews. I just really don't like the bankers. And the banking class tend to be a little bit more than I can handle. And I was going to make a sexual innuendo joke, and then I realized that I'm in trouble for that. And I've recently gave somebody the rights to smack me with a 3-foot purple dildo if I don't start behaving right, Jeff. For those of you who don't know, Jeff's the imaginary editor of this show. I say imaginary. He's probably imaginary. He might exist. I don't know. But anyways, that's been the news. That's been me opining on the news. I'm probably going to continue expanding and stuff like that. But at the end of this, I want to give you a little bit of channel updates and stuff. And this is going to be a long-ass video. First off, I'm not going to be able to upload gameplay today. I had a lot going on today. And I'm trying to get back into the habit of having that up daily. I'm planning on doing some other formats, some more creative formats. This channel is a variety channel. It always has been a variety channel. But there will be some more game stuff coming out. There will be some more gaming news and cultural news. But that's just it. At this point in time, when it comes to news, you have to talk about everything. I can't do the Let's Play thing anymore. I'm kind of stuck in this variety whatever that I am. There's also going to be more updates to the VTuber model. It needs some overhauls. But, you know, that's just who I am. I'm a workaholic, as it is. And the new format's coming along. I don't know what they're going to be exactly. I don't know how I can announce them or anything. I have to keep them quiet for now. But there's also the aggregate. I'm also uploading all videos to alternate text sites. As soon as they go up on YouTube, generally within an hour, they're up on the alt text sites. This will be Odyssey, Rumble, and there's one other in the near future, but I am not going to say who it is. We're also working out stuff with other VTubers, other YouTubers, new talent and old talent. I am personally willing to start conversing with people to do various other things. Live streams. We're going to be trying to do live streams. Obviously, I don't have the internet to do massively impressive live streams, but we are going to try to do live streams over the weekend now. I can't guarantee a set date for when that starts. And furthermore, like, I plan on moving this channel forward again. I want to thank everybody that stays at this point of the video. I know it's a long ass video today. I want to thank everybody for sticking with me. The news show is probably going to start taking a little bit longer because I'm trying to do a little bit more on the production side. But that being said, I've been Jackie, you've been you. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share on your favorite social media platforms. Because as I grow, the more I'm able to do. And the more I'm able to do, the more fun stuff in the future we'll be able to do. So, until next time, laters, my dudes. Laters.